Morning. Morning, everybody. That means you, Bryan, too. Good morning, good morning. You're supposed to say good morning back. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. My name is Pahua Yang Hoffman, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Government and Community Relations for HealthPartners. And I'm really excited to be here this morning. I left my house at 6 o'clock in downtown Minneapolis, and I made such a beautiful drive. I heard all about all the news on construction on 94. So I took myself north, drove down 36. Don't do that. Oh, well, I did it. Oh, well, it must have come after me because I didn't see that. And I just, I've been to Camp St. Croix, not this building in particular, but down by where the cabins are. Went to 2 beautiful weddings in the last couple of years. And so I knew exactly where I was heading and was looking forward to not only being in this part of Wisconsin, but to discover this beautiful room and to be with all of you. So thank you for joining us. I know we have people online as well, so I want to welcome them joining virtually. So if you're new to Little Moments Count, it's a true social movement, educating parents, caregivers about seizing those little moments in the first 1,000 days of life, to talk, to play, to read, to storytell with our little ones. So as you'll hear this morning, Little Moments Count does this work through partnership, promoting the wonderful organizations and program already working so hard with families and working across organizational and community boundaries to fill gaps together where they exist. Each of us in our organizations have an important role to play in supporting young families. I'm going to take a break from my prepared script and tell you a little bit about this conference I was just at last week. In fact, I flew to New York City to be part of the Reach Out and Read National Conference. And I was invited to be part of a panel on early relational health. And I'm not, even though I work for HealthPartners, I don't have a healthcare background. I actually have a policy background. And so I connected with Judy in the back, Croix Valley Foundation board member right away. And I came to policy work on accident because I'm the oldest of 4. I'm the only one born overseas. I was 2 years old when my parents came to the United States. I don't remember that immigrant experience, but I certainly remember growing up with parents with limited English. And I remember the teachers and the special educators I had. I grew up in a time where I carried around a big tape recorder with cassette tapes. So I was sent home extra work to do at home because there wasn't a lot of English spoken in my house other than a 13-inch black and white TV that PBS was always on. And so I wanted to give a shout out to Alana because she's now a staff member at the foundation, and she and I worked together at TPT, and part of the call to work for PBS was that early connection that I had with all the programming. And I mentioned this conference because our keynote speaker, Dr. Junli Lee, he's a senior lecturer at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. We often talk about, when we talk about programs like Little Moments Count, and maybe many of the programs that St. Croix Valley Foundation sponsors, we talk a lot about ROI these days because we want to give a business connection to the work that we do, and that $1 equals $3 or $13. And in his talk, he talked about how we don't talk too much about the $1, that initial investment. We talk about what it does later, but we don't think about the people it takes, the investment it takes to even begin the idea. And one case study was the Perry Preschool Project in Ypsilanti, Michigan, about those educators, those psychologists who co-created this program for the underserved and low-income families that were around Perry Preschool, and how the educators were paid more than the educators around that area because of the work that they were doing. So there was a community that came around them to support them financially in ways that they could then not worry about funding and fundraising, and they could just focus on creating that program for those students and those young learners that they wanted to have an impact. And so I want you to look at each other, and you're part of that initial investment with us, right? We are the beginning of coming together to create that collective voice and that collective set of actions that we want to take place in our community. So I want to thank you for being here again and for being part of this work. And this work is so not only special to me because of the many caregivers around me who got me where I am today, but I remember getting this call from my baby sister. She had just had a baby. And not long after she had Olivia, which I was in the birthing room, and it's the most amazing experience I've ever had. And I also got to name her Olivia. So this is both my love of Olivia de Havilland and Olivia Newton-John. Not long after my sister had her baby, her relationship didn't survive, and I moved home. I wanted to be around this baby. I wanted to support her. I wanted to support my sister. And I'll spare you the long story, and I'll just let you know that she's in Salt Lake City right now attending an art conservation conference with her boss. She and I traveled to Italy, and she saw her love of art and science come together, and she says, that's what I want to do. And so, again, it just takes all of us to support the young people around us. And that's my personal story. And every time I see her, the Little Moments Count mission really comes to life for me. A little bit about HealthPartners. So I'm newer to HealthPartners. It's been just a little over 2 years for me. I mentioned how healthcare is not my background, but community work and community advocacy and policy is my background and my passion. And so HealthPartners is really honored to have been at the launch of Little Moments Count. It's hard to believe it's been 8 years. And so during these 8 years, we're so thankful to have partners who said yes to joining this work early, who are saying yes to joining this work now. It was through this partnership with Greater Twin Cities United Way, Reach Out and Read, healthcare organizations, our peers, local and state public health, media partners, like community radio stations, and all of these organizations. At the end of last year, 2023, is this the slide that shows the 90 now partners across Minnesota and Wisconsin? Just take a moment and take a look at all the names here on this slide. And again, this all started in rooms like this, with caring leaders and community members just coming together over breakfast. Thank you for breakfast, by the way. I rarely get breakfast, and I got a warm one today. To discuss how we work together, build a stronger web of connections, again, to fill the gaps and support family and children. I now want to thank the St. Croix Valley Foundation. I've met many of the staff and board members today for all the work that you do to expand Little Moments Count into the St. Croix Valley. And you'll hear a little bit from Heather Logelin, St. Croix Valley Foundation's president CEO, a little bit later this morning. I want to thank those of you who have already been involved. And again, it's a growing social movement. And we're really excited to expand and personalize the movement here to meet the unique needs of this community. I'm almost done. Again, we have people online. I think we have about 140 people and online. I think we have about 70 registered to be here with us in person. I'll leave you with these two things. My call to action for you, both online and in the room, is to listen to the speakers we have this morning and find your unique way to engage and create your own plan to support families and optimize brain connections in these really critical first 1,000 days. sometimes when we hear about headlines of education gaps and et cetera, it's really hard to know where to begin to help solve for that. And what I tell my team, and sometimes what I have to like give my own pep talk to myself, is the most influence that we can have is in the spaces where we work, play, and live, right? So it's through the people you know. It's these dinner conversations, it's conversations with your friends, it's the meetings at Rotary, it's board meetings. These are the places where the change can really happen. And two, we have some stuff on your table. You'll see there's a note card and pens. We have scribes at each table. Really participate in those table conversations. And this is a shout out to my staff. They want me to tell you to fill out the post-event survey questions. Do not forget about that, Pupua. Okay, I got that done. All right. Thank you for having me this morning. I hope in some small way, you know, or at least feel from me this morning, just how important this Little Moments Count work is. It's not work that I feel I have to do. It's work that I feel I get to do. And already talking to so many of you, I know that your heart is where mine is this morning. With that, I'm going to hand it to someone who I know also carries the same passion in her heart. Marna Canterbury is the Vice President of Community Health and Partnership. She's on my team, and I'm so lucky to get to work with her every day. She'll be moderating our panel discussion today. Thank you.
Pahua and I have different mic heights, and we know that well. So thanks, Pahua. Whenever you speak, I think it's inspiring, and it also reflects the authenticity I think we all can bring to this work. I am very honored and excited to be able to moderate a discussion with our 4 panelists today. And before we dive into that, I do want to say, as a parent myself of adults, children, and someone who has a growing number of, I call them littles in my life, and as someone who took time last night to go through my children's bookshelf, the things that I just couldn't put in a box. Does anyone else have that? They're on the shelf. And just was reflecting, right, on those moments and on those early times being a parent or coming alongside another parent. For me, the reflection was the Star Wars book that you push and Anakin Skywalker says something. Anyway, but the importance there is that as precious as those times are, we also remember, we really think back, God, how stretched we were as parents. God, how deeply we needed to dig to show up the way we know we needed to show up for our children. And that is true today for caregivers, for parents, for educators, for all of us who love kids. And I think that's the other message that I think we're going to hear from the panel today is not only the absolute critical importance of this work, those first 1,000 days, the impact we can make, really how simple it is, how simple it can be, and that there's a lot we can do to reduce barriers for families, for children, for teachers, for caregivers, for our community. So anyway, I'm super jazzed to moderate this panel. The bios, the longer bios of our 4 very illustrious panelists are in your packets, but I did get to know each of them a little bit better during our preparation. So just so you have a headline, I'm going to start with Rob. Rob is an expert on that economic impact of early childhood brain development on communities. I mean, I'll put the word the expert in there. He has spent decades in research, in policy. He's an economist. How cool. We're going to learn a lot from him. Sitting next to him is Thia. She is one of my teammates. She is a dedicated health promotion and partnership leader in multiple communities, and she is the director of our Little Moments Count work through our HealthPartners channel. She has a huge passion for this work, and she has deep understanding of how this has happened in other communities. So just wait for that. Sitting next to her is Katie, who brings decades of experience, I will just say, holding the hands, as she described it, of parents and caregivers and littles, supporting them as an early childhood health educator. And she also was, as an early childhood educator, the Minnesota Teacher of the Year in 2011. How cool is that? And then last, but isn't great. And last but not least is Dr. Bryan Cress, who is a local pediatrician to the Valley. I asked him, is it fair to say that you've taken care of thousands of children? And he kind of looked at me like, I have thousands of children right now. So we did the math. And we think it's hundreds of thousands of children and families in this St. Croix Valley area who have been impacted by his care. And those who have worked with pediatricians and providers, you know how important they take their role in terms of guiding, supporting, and helping families. So his perspective and lens is critical to this work. So enough with me talking. Let's listen to our panelists. I know that I gave you the briefest of overview of who they are, but I've asked each of them to really let us get to know them and their perspectives on this topic a little bit deeper. And so Rob, would you start us out?
Sure. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for inviting me this morning. So I'm a consultant in economics and public policy, but before working as a consultant independently, I worked for almost 3 decades at the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, along with 11 other Federal Reserve banks around the country, and the Board of Governors in Washington, D.C. comprise the Federal Reserve System. So my work in early childhood began in 2002 when Art Rolnick, who was director of research at the time at the Minneapolis Fed, asked me to join him in writing a paper about the economic benefits of investing in young children, which is a work assignment that seemed a little bit of a stretch from my regional economics that I was typically working on. So we spent a summer reading through early childhood research, also the science of child development. And we wrote the paper, Early Childhood Development, Economic Development with a High Public Return. And in the paper, we argued that next dollar that you can spend on economic development would achieve the highest return if that dollar is spent on the development of young children. And so we make that argument in the paper, and to our surprise, it was popular. And so we were invited to speak about this topic and found that there was a role for us as economists to do further research in early childhood, especially looking at the economic benefits of these investments, but also to participate in discussions on public policy about early childhood. And so I continue that work now as an independent consultant, mostly working with nonprofits that lean towards early childhood, supporting them with data analysis and communications.
That's hard to follow. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Thia Bryan. And I think Marna gave a quick little intro of who I am. I think my most important identity, of course, is as a mom of 2. I have a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old. And so I think that has been so key to understanding the challenges of the first 1,000 days of life and really what's needed to support families, where the gaps are. I think Marna shared my title, Health and Wellbeing Partnership Manager at HealthPartners, and I help to lead the Little Moments Count work. We have an amazing large team, especially as we think about the fact that it's 90 partners. And you saw up the highlights up on the screen of how many already are here in the Valley. We're excited about this expansion and all of the great work that we can do together in this region. In my professional life, I spend a lot of time in the family, perinatal, and pediatric kind of health care community space in lots of different ways, and really trying to bring folks together to work on issues that are difficult to solve alone. And that includes through our Little Moments Count work. I am also, in other ways that I serve families, and ways and areas that I have passion. I'm also an internationally board certified lactation consultant. So I'm really passionate about, the supporting families in those first 3 years of life with nutrition and all of that good stuff. And also spend, some of my time in the cultural responsiveness space. And that includes in that really important cultural responsiveness regarding evaluation space. And we're not going to focus on that today, but that's an area we spend a lot of time with LMC, is really elevating parent voice. And so you'll hear that message from me today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to take a deep breath and do two things. First of all, just have a moment to think about my young career person on a panel of this panel. Would have blown my mind. And actually this morning it did as well. The second thing that's going to make me even more nervous is to do this. Ready? Hello, everybody. Hello. Hello, everybody. Hello. So glad you came. Hope you feel the same. Hello, everybody. Hello. I do that because I can't sing. In fact, my husband sometimes gives me $5 a trip not to sing on road trips. But I also do that because a lot of people feel like they can't, and so they don't. And so I find it a vulnerable space that I'm willing to share with families, to say the audience is really forgiving. You might not be, but a baby and a 3-year-old is. My name is Katie Smith. And if I could have you sometime today, just take 20 seconds to think about your own coming home journey to your own family. Who was there? Were they excited for you? I hope so. Who else was at home? How were they doing? Where did they live? Who might have been there to bring over a tater tot hot dish or a pan of brownies, or to hold your big brother or your big sister? And how was the transition for your mother and your father, or any other caregiver that was there to welcome you, an adoptive parent? My theory is this, and I'll stick to it. That experience and the next 1,000 days really formed and shaped who you are as a person more than any other time in your life. And so it matters that the family that you came home to is loved and supported and cared for. I know so many adults who are trying to overcome their first 1,000 days because those kinds of supports weren't there for them. And to me, it seems like such an easy fix to roll up our sleeves and to get to work with some radical hospitality for people who are welcoming brand new babies into their lives. Even if you don't make a good tater tot hot dish. The point is showing up. I always show up with my pampered chef stone. Now, for those of you unfamiliar, this thing cost a pretty penny. And I make a killer pan of brownies, and I welcome a baby with that pampered chef stone. Some of you might think, wait, just put those brownies on a paper plate, and I will not. And I'll tell you why I will not. I will see you and say, I understand that you have a new baby girl. I'm so excited for you. I've made a pan of brownies, and keep the stone. And let me know when you want me to come and get it back, giving me a second opportunity, maybe 10 days, maybe 2 weeks later, to look you in the eye and to say, how's it going? You getting any sleep? You feeling all right? Tell me something about this sweet baby of yours, because you're the expert. I've spent a career as a parent educator, meaning I meet parents in a classroom, in home visits, in auditoriums, but mostly in circles. connecting them to the joyful journey of raising very small children and the maddening journey of raising very small children. And we build community around that in a program called Early Childhood Family Education, who is celebrating 50 years this year. It's an investment Minnesota has made in its parents in public schools to say, we understand that parents are the first and most important teachers of young children. So let us support you with good research, with good stories, with a good community that can really embrace you and surround you with the kind of love and support you need. And for those of you that need to do some reparenting to help you with that as well. Those first 1,000 days created a parenting library in your own head. It's what you bring 20 years later, 30 years later, 45 years later, or if you're, I don't know, David Letterman, 52 years later. I mean, how old was he? I don't know. I have to have a sip. Better. That parenting library is one that you bring out, your lived experience in those first several years. Those first 2,000 days, maybe. Parent education then is, I went really long, so you can hook me out if you have to. Support the ups and downs in the lives of small children, meeting parents where they are, in schools, in home visits, at the clinics, in home childcare centers, in center-based childcare, online, in prison, and in the workplace. And once for me, on a long road trip from Winona to Pepin, Wisconsin and back, because it was the only time that a parent could talk with a colicky baby, knowing that the baby would fall asleep in the car. The tools for delivery of parent education are strength-based, research-driven curriculum and a joyful approach to childhood. A keen eye for seeing the very best in people, a big heart and a sense of humor, and a sense of wild optimism and hope. Oh man, I'm the first one to get the wrap up. Okay, what can I cut? All those essential for a child's brain development. Okay, one more thing. So investing this kind of time and resources here pays off, not just today, but for generations. Yes, lots of nodding head. I also have 7 grandchildren, 4 of them in their second 1,000 days and 3 in their first. And there is no more joy than all kinds of grandparents that I see now who are grandparenting in a very different way than we can imagine our own grandparents. I laugh when I think about Grandma Mabel. Even the thought of her sitting crisscross applesauce makes me crack up. And I am trying to learn how to break dance because my granddaughter Lena thinks it would be good for me. Thanks so much for having me.
Ooh. I don't know if I can live up to that. Well, first of all, I won't sing. I will be honest. There's 2 things I'm jealous of other people with dimples and people that can sing, because I have neither. I can't do either. But first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me here today. I think this is an incredibly exciting kind of process of bringing the first 1,000 days into the valley and extending it into where I practice medicine. So when I was finishing my training at the University of Ann Arbor, or Michigan in Ann Arbor, we didn't have a developmental specialist. They hired one at the very end of my training for the last 6 months, and really very few of us had a chance to do that or to experience that kind of training. And to see the development of the interest and the ways to encourage and nurture children in these first 1,000 days. Developmental assessments. We had one, but it was very rudimentary and very antiquated at the time that I learned it. And now we have all kinds of developmental screens for kids, both for physical, emotional, and social development. So this is really very exciting, and to be able to be a part of that and see kids grow. I coach parents as well. You get to see them a lot those first year or so, first 2 years of life, first 1,000 days of life, and I tell them, I coach them to try to parent their children and encourage them to grow into their best friends later on. You can't be your kid's best friend till they're probably 25, but put those qualities into them early on. count as you're walking up the stairs, sing in the car, talk to them as you're going through Target. I won't steal your thunder for later on, but she warned me about that, but it's really, I have a very unique and kind of treasured role in that I get to be the sounding board for new parents, for first parents, for fourth parents, for 10th parents, and I get to give them advice and both what to do and also when people come to me and they say, Grandma told me this, or I read this online, I say, no, no, that's not a good idea. And with this gray hair I've got, I have a little more gravitas. I can say, oh, that's not going to work. But anyway, thank you again for inviting me. I really appreciate the opportunity to come here and speak and hear what these other amazing panelists have to say as well.
Thank you so much. All of you, you can see why our prep meetings were so fun and knowledgeable. I am gonna ask a couple more questions of our panel. And then just a reminder, you have note cards, start writing them down, as well as those online. There's a Q&A section. Please submit thoughts you have, questions you have. But for the next question for the panel, and I'm going to start again with Rob on this one. I wanted to focus briefly on the impact. What's the impact of these investments? We've talked kind of high level about the first 1,000 days matter more than most other times or any other time in life. But from your specific lens, can you give us a couple minutes on what the impact is? Go ahead, Robert.
So research shows that when children arrive at kindergarten, where they are developmentally, often relative to their peers, is where they tend to stay. So children who come to kindergarten behind tend to stay behind. And research shows that early childhood programs, starting with maternal and child home visiting, health programs, the parent educating ECFE program that Katie's talking about, high quality early care and education programs can support child development and help children prepare to arrive at kindergarten to succeed in school. And what research has been able to do is to analyze some of these programs with high quality research design, including preschool, which was mentioned earlier, and be able to follow up the children as they move through school and into adulthood. And what some of these multi-decade studies show is that in school, children have higher achievement and they are less likely to be retained in a grade. They're less likely to need special education. They're more likely to graduate from high school and earn more in the labor force and pay more in taxes. And they're less likely to commit crime. So economists have been able to add up all of those benefits over time, and to this body of studies that I'm referring to show that $4 to up to as high as $16 is returned for every dollar that is invested. And certainly the children benefit from these investments, but the majority of the benefits accrue to society, to everyone. So this makes a strong argument to make community and also government financing for these investments, because everyone is receiving those benefits.
Go ahead, Thea.
Thank you. That was the perfect introduction. And from the lens of Little Moments Count, I would say that, I think what we're hearing Rob say is support matters, right? And the partnership, the partners coming together and bringing those deeper supports that we offer to parents has a huge impact in reducing stress and really optimizing that opportunity for families to make the deepest connections and have those that serve and return interaction. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on today. The supports that communities provide really reduce that parent stress, increase attachment. And I know Dr. Cress is going to talk about some of the health impacts, but working for a healthcare organization, I would be remiss if I didn't say that we also know that there's strong evidence connecting parent support, this early interaction in the first 1,000 days to lifelong physical and mental well-being impacts. So it also impacts at the individual health level, which is very important. And we have a huge opportunity.
I have a graphic that would be really great right here. I thought about this question in terms of how to support brain development, thinking about all of you in the room. I sometimes feel like we give a lot of credibility to experts, but really this is a neighbor community thing that we can all do. So I want you to step out of the room and think about, what is my role in supporting a child's brain development? And every one of us has one. I think in these concentric circles since college. That's Yuri Bronfenbrenner. I don't even know if anyone even remembers who he is, but I think about that child in the family, the story that I gave you at the beginning. And that relationship, and what do we do to support that relationship, and who are the family members around them? And more often than not now, people are not living close to a family member. And so you have to create your own family, right? The chosen family that you bring into your life that can pick up your kid from school, you can call in the middle of the night if you have to run to the emergency room or whatever. And then the neighborhood, which I feel like we post-COVID really have some work to do to step back into the space of how can I let you know that I live near you and I care about you and I care about your baby. All this matters to brain development. The community, of course, the schools, the healthcare, all those places that impact a child's relationship with the parent, but also wires up their brain in a way. And then remembering that all the things that kind of hammer against that, right, will also impact that relationship and that child's brain. And so what kind of situation can we optimally build together to create capacity for that relationship to be as strong as it can be? And then the others in the circles as well.
Yeah, so I feel my role is I get to see babies from the nursery and all the way through these first 1,000 days. And so with I feel like it is really a community thing. I can't do it all myself, but I can help coach parents to do things. I can help them make sure the nutrition is adequate. I can help get them involved with other programs, whether it's ECFE or other program, other supportive organizations. I think you're right. The community thing is just huge to me. I think both parents and kids just do better when the community surrounds them and supports them. That's really it. Yeah.
Bryan, why don't you keep Dr. Krause, keep the mic, because I think we'll reverse
Okay.
order. Thank you all for that. I think the impact piece is coming out really strongly from all the different point of views that you have. And to achieve that impact, we also know that, and you've already addressed a bit, that there are barriers in communities and in families that can get in the way of this optimal brain development. So starting with you, Dr. Cress, would you start to comment on what's some of the barriers you see?
Well, there certainly are many. One thing is isolation. I mean, sometimes, certainly the last 4 years have really been challenging for everybody and for new parents that can't get together with other families and network. The ECFE was largely closed down because you didn't want kids coughing on each other. So I think that's really that was really harmful. That was really hurtful, but so necessary in the overall health of our community. I think the advice I give parents is to get silly with their kids, get into their world and play with them and encourage them to get dirty and to learn things and experience their whole world. Certainly as the health of the child plays a role, we try to keep them give them advice, give parents and families advice on how to keep their kids healthy so they can learn. When a child is sick or ill or has an ear infection, it's hard to develop and learn when you're in pain and not sleeping well. So I've always kind of considered myself a part of a bigger team with the parents and schools and ECFE. Some of the barriers, daycare is ungodly expensive. And so it takes a full-time job plus to be able to be able to support one child, let alone two in daycare. And parents are sometimes working 1, 2, 3 jobs just to be able to get by, just to have some adult time. And sometimes it's just a break even thing. So it really, there's a lot of barriers, and I try to help them with the support we have from the community and from HealthPartners. HealthPartners has this amazing, it was called the Children's Health Initiative. Now it's not an initiative anymore. It's actually been incorporated. Council, Children's Health Council. It's not, because it's now been indoctrinated into HealthPartners, which I think I'm very honored to be able to be a part of an organization that really prioritizes children going forward. Because I mean, this is really pretty cliche, but they have to be our future.
I went kind of dark, so you might want to hold hands on this question. I completely agree with isolation, and everyone pivoted and delivered programs differently, and we're all kind of still reeling from that. But there are some serious barriers to parents in an parenting well right now. I think one of them is just, if you're a dysregulated parent, if you're stressed out, if you're anxious, if you're nervous, if you're having some post-traumatic stress about COVID or something that's happened to you, that you don't co-regulate with the baby very easily. So imagine, right, trying to nurse in this state and trying to nurse in a calm state, right? We're also growing kids in a somewhat toxic childhood. This is where you might want to hold hands, but I do feel hopeful about it. There is a feeling out there that faster is better for kids, and it's not. It's just not. And kids are telling us in all kinds of different ways, enough out of you grown-ups. Let us be us. Let us play. Let us just do what we do. Let us be 3. There's real misguided views about play and its importance in the role of early childhood and brain development, and it's misguided. Play is really the answer for how we build brains in kids. We're also raising kids in a very competitive parenting culture. Those of you that are in it know, yuck, right? Mostly yuck. We also make big mistakes when we do for children what they can't do for themselves, robbing them of confidence, a real sense of value, and a real sense of contribution to their first community, their family. Social media and the addictive nature of screens is harmful for little kids when their parents are distracted because of a screen, or when they're being asked to co-regulate because of a screen instead of because of a human being. That's problematic for all of us, and probably should ping a little bit of guilt for all of us. Lack of caring connections. I will just very quickly tell you, in 2007, Dr. Will Miller wrote a book that's hard to find. Man, I've been chasing it down. I can't find it, but it's called Refrigerator Rights, creating connections and restoring relationships. And the whole premise is, do you have someone in your house, if you're really struggling, or in your life, and you need a cup of coffee, but you're changing a diaper and folding laundry, who can come in and know that you take cream in your coffee and open your fridge? Those are the kind of connections that kids do better in, when there are people in your life that have refrigerator rights in your house that can come in and whip together a grilled cheese sandwich because they're that familiar. So those are, I think, what are the barriers are.
Thea, just before you start, thank you, Dr. Cress. Thank you, Katie. I just want to get a reminder that we will be collecting note cards for questions. So if you have some, start writing them down, and there'll be folks to collect them. Thanks so much. Sorry for the interruption. Thea, love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you. Well, back to this idea of always trying to center parents' voice. I think that's what I'm going to do in this particular response, is really share with you. We, at 2 separate occasions over the last 5 years, actually did a very large survey, about 1,200 families, and then followed up with additional listening sessions to really talk with families about what do those results mean. And I just want to say, we heard directly from families all of the things that we've talked about so far, as well as some of the really practical things like safety in my community might be a barrier, right? I want to go play at the park, but I'm not feeling safe. I might, not have access to, if I'm thinking about the challenges of how the cost of food has gone up. I may not be able to afford that high quality childcare program, and there's just not enough scholarships available to assist my family. So there are a lot of those practical things. I think the other thing that we heard really strongly from families was this idea of, and we heard about it a little bit, but overwhelm. Overwhelm from everything that's been happening in our world in the last couple of years, but also overwhelmed because there's parenting information coming from literally everywhere. Other parents, all of the places. And it's good that we're trying to support, but sometimes a lot of the information that's shared feels overwhelming and really maybe a little too prescriptive. I know that's not Dr. Cress's approach, and that's one of the reasons why we have him on the panel today. But the idea of saying, well, you must read 30 minutes to each of your children. Well, that's a good general rule, right? But if you think about, if I'm a family that has 2 jobs, I'm a single parent, I have 7 or 10 children, the numbers just don't work out. So I think, elevating parent voice and really centering the unique needs of families is really how we kind of help to support these barriers.
So I'll answer the question a little differently. That a barrier from a policy perspective to investing in young children is political will. And that it takes funding to support these programs. The highest return will come from reaching those children who are facing the most disadvantage. This is where we can help shift a trajectory that will ultimately support that child, but to the family and also society as a whole. And thousands of children are eligible for the current set of services and programs that they can't access them because there's not enough funding. So that's the glass half empty. The glass half full is that early childhood, fortunately, is a bipartisan issue. Over the last 10 years, Congress has advanced investments in early childhood and needed votes from both parties in order to pass those investments. And one reason is that there's a strong business coalition for making investments in early childhood, especially around childcare. They recognize, especially during the pandemic, that mothers with young children were the first to leave the labor force and have been the slowest to come back because of the lack of availability of reliable childcare. So if we have those voices at the table from multiple sectors that benefit from these investments, that is a way that we can help to overcome those barriers. And just in terms of key investments, maternal and child health, home visiting, parent education, high quality early care and education, investing in those educators that are working for those early childhood programs is so important. And the cultural, that they're supporting the culture of those families, that they have a wide variety of choices, and that we can see the benefits of when families are able to find a program that matches their needs. There's wonderful cultural programs throughout all of our communities, including Native American communities, which have a lot of innovation and bring that culture to children, which is a supportive factor in supporting their development.
Thank you to all of you for everything I'm learning, which I'm sure is shared by the room. There's some time we have just set aside to be sure we hear from all of you. And I have a few questions already from the group gathered here. And I know we have a team collecting questions from those online. So feel free to bring those up if something comes in online, team, okay? I want to start with one of the questions from folks here. talked a lot about all of you about read, talk, sing, play, story, tell, all the ways that folks can connect. And the question is whether there's a relationship that we know of between time in the natural environment or nature and how that might fit into early childhood brain development. I'm looking for who's nodding. Katie, you're not, or Rob's nodding. so
I'll
go
just,
ahead,
I'll
Rob.
just nod really fast and say, you know, as the economist, this is, you know, specifically, this isn't my area, but I will say that being around a lot of developmental psychologists, that nature is so important. And our family is making that investment. We live in a rural area in Wisconsin with a 4-year-old, and we want to be as nature rich as possible for her growing up.
I'll meet that story with I had to kiss a toad yesterday because my granddaughter asked me to. So I will tell you this, children play differently in nature. They play with wonder, with wild curiosity in a bigger way than they do with toys in a classroom, even the best toys in the classroom. We give kids a sense of awe and a sense of spirituality that is not at all religious, right? But that is, there's big stuff out here. Big, giant, amazing things. When kids come to school with tons of curiosity and a sense that anything is possible, they learn well. Kids learn that in nature. There's a movement all across, even the Midwest where it's cold in the winter, and I am here for it. Stillwater Public Schools is a great example of that, but you find nature preschools popping up all over and for good reason. They're going to be probably the generation that has to save it, right? And so if you're going to create stewards of an environment, you have to get them outside. I feel so strongly about it. I could have done that for my whole time, but I'm going to pass it to you. Do you want it? Do you just want to say ditto?
Ditto, yes.
Okay.
Great questions. Thanks for that. It does. I think in the St. Croix Valley area, there is a love of environment and nature, and what a great way to think about how we can tie that in to creating a movement here in the St. Croix Valley. I'm pretty excited about that too. Here's a question I think is really important and not surprising, because the St. Croix Valley crosses the beautiful St. Croix River, and there are differences in both resources, key agencies, and also policy between Minnesota and Wisconsin. The writer of the question asked specifically about ECFE being a program in Minnesota, different in Wisconsin. But there are key support agencies in Wisconsin as well. So I'd love to have each of you comment or address the question about what public policies and resources are important in each of our states. And because of the presence of ECFE in Minnesota, are there specific public policy positions or ideas in Wisconsin that you would advocate for? So pretty broad question, but I know it's something we want to dive in on. Rob, would you start us out?
Sure. Start us off. So, you know, a key strategy is layering the types of investments so that you are sure that you're reaching children who are the most disadvantaged, most vulnerable. And that could be layering in home visiting, preschool opportunities and childcare opportunities that have woven in, you know, deep developmental supports, supports that also address needs and challenges of that family. But all children are important to access the high quality early care and education, the supports in our health systems, and parent education. All parents would benefit from having that support around like an ECFE program. So you want to you have your targeted programs, but then you step back and think, what does the entire community need and benefit from, so that you're layering those types of investments. And it's interesting to compare Wisconsin and Minnesota, the different approaches. Certainly, you know, ECFE is mentioned in Minnesota. Wisconsin has a different way of approaching how it funds some of its preschool dollars through its school systems. There's a lot of availability for 4-year-olds in that system. In Minnesota, there's early learning scholarships, which are for lower income families, but they can use those scholarships through a wide variety of programs. So states can learn from each other and build and tier those investments from targeted up to broad population-based interventions.
That was a great start. I think I wanted to use the time before I pass the mic to Katie to elevate some of the great support partners that are already a part of the 1,000 Days Fund. I know that we'll be, kind of reminding folks of who they are. If you don't know, as a part of our wrap-up email, folks like the Family Resource Center. I'm not going to remember all of their names, you guys, but there's a lot of amazing work happening. And I think they just need more support, and we need more partners. Ones that aren't, immediately on the list, but are great overall supports for families in Wisconsin include Early Head Start, the United Ways. I know they are on the list or have been on the list in the past in different places. And I think Rob alluded to this, but they're in other systems like healthcare. We have amazing programs like Reach Out and Read that really aims to try to, provide that developmental education and support directly to parents as part of the well child visit, and provide age appropriate books as well at the well child visit where families already are. And then I just wanted to say that I think we see a lot of success by when we let communities lead. And I think that's an important piece, is letting communities tell us what the solutions are, start with the dollars, and then actually letting communities kind of lead in the space of what's going to work for them.
Thank you. I'm going to go quick on this. I love policy that helps us think about paid family leave. What kind of time do we want to give mothers and fathers? And can we give it to them in a way that works best for their family, right? Can we maybe spread it out? Can we take a whole year to figure it out, a whole first year of that baby? So can we tailor paid family leave so it really works for people who are working with young children at home? I also think that one of the ways we do is when we do big giant campaigns, right? We make billboards and we get the word out for people. And if everybody knew that the greatest predictor of your third grade reading level was the number of words you heard in your first year of life, that would change the whole game, wouldn't it? Change the way we invest our dollars and change. And so a big grand schemes of public community education would be awesome.
Thank you. Well, one thing, whenever people get to talk to me, they get to hear my opinions, and I get on my soapbox sometimes. One of my big soapbox things is that children seem to be the people talk big about supporting children, both politics and school districts and all that. And although there's political will on both sides, kids frequently are the first things dropped because they don't have a voice. And that it gets me really fired up because it time and time again, programs get cut. But like Rob was saying, there's different resources between Minnesota and Wisconsin. It's great to see things like Reach Out and Read pass from one state to the other. One thing that just recently happened is that Wisconsin apparently approved Reach Out and Read down to birth. In Minnesota, it's down to 6 months of age. So it'd be fun to see a little competition between what you're doing that. Okay, I can do this, but it really. It gets me really fired up when people talk big about kids, but then they're the first ones cut because they don't have a voice. And so I'm hopefully speaking to the choir here, but if we can all just kind of remember that we need to remember, or really back up our talk and support these children.
Dr. Cress, I'm going to ask you to keep the mic for a minute. And in the interest of time, I might just have one panel member answer a couple of these other questions before we wrap. All right. So, Dr. Cress, do you have anything that you'd like to add on the question, which is the effect of smartphones technology on kids and early childhood development?
Wow. Yeah, it's a
Yeah, and I asked for a quick answer.
Right.
Terribly challenging.
So again, I think, we've moved, I think smartphones and computers are here to stay, and kids need to learn how to use them, but we also need to learn how to compartmentalize that and put them away. I see infants with their parents' phone, not just mom's phone, but dad's phone or iPads. And they throw an absolute hissy fit when they're taken away in the clinic. It's an addictive thing. I don't think I'm speaking out of line saying that these manufacturers have figured out how to make these things addictive. The swiping is addictive. And so I think it's just so important. We are social beings. And so emphasizing social time, I think, limiting screen time, limiting phone time, it's just integral to the well-being of our children.
Thank you so much. We could stay here really late today because I would like to ask them more questions. But I'm gonna pivot us and I'm gonna suggest a couple things. After we're done with the panel, we're gonna go into table conversations, and there are some great questions coming in here. Please discuss them as a table as we do. The panelists are also available, some of them afterwards. Sorry to pivot, but doesn't this show how much energy and how much learning we have to do on this topic? All right. Dr. Cress, why don't you keep the mic? I'll challenge you yet another time. They knew I was going to do this. So we've heard a lot of great things about impact, about potential barriers, about potential solutions. So this is called our rapid round robin. So they've got like 30 seconds to answer this question right down the line. What's your best advice to this group gathered, to those online, to the St. Croix Valley, on how we can work together to start making a bigger impact in the first 1,000 days? Don't worry, they were prepared to do this.
Big picture. Yikes. Well, I think it's probably just remembering that these kids need us to advocate for them and never tire. I'd like to tell parents when their kid is asking for a cookie or one, you can be more stubborn than your child, and so be stubborn for your child. And whether it's keeping their cell phone away or let them have just a limited number of minutes a day, or advocating for parks or programs or sidewalks or bike programs or whatever it is that or reading to your child, to reach out and read. Don't be a tireless advocate for these amazing little things.
I can go.
You can
Okay.
go.
So understanding that my core philosophy is this: when parents are well, children do better. I think it's important to ask parents to all the tables that we're making decisions about their lives, make them a part of the conversation, integral to the conversation. Like, why would we even start without them at the conversation? Childcare providers as well. Everyone who's working with the youngest learners in Wisconsin and Minnesota need to be asked. And then listen. Listen for understanding instead of listening for rapid results, but listening for understanding and then responding accordingly. Supporting parents and caregivers with radical hospitality is a proven strategy for better outcomes for children. And we all must know that there are children, right? Caring for the children we share. Every child in your community is yours.
I'll just quickly, and then I'll pass. I just, want to echo the importance of partnership. And I think we've talked a lot about supports that are needed and barriers. And I think if we can work as systems and really figure out how do we smooth out some of these bumps for families, we can make things better as a community. And there's a lot to say there, but I'm going to pass it in the spirit of time.
And in terms of coalition building, to look broadly in the community, because business leaders, law enforcement officers, faith-based leaders, they all have a role at the table and can help move this issue forward.
Thank you so much to all of you. Before we transition, I know I've wanted to clap about 100 times when they've been talking. If anyone else would like to join me, some appreciation for our panelists. We know the wisdom. I think we've seen a little bit of the wisdom that's up at this table. We also know there's great wisdom in this room. That, as I think Katie has said it well, Thia and Rob and Dr. Cress, that all of us have a role to play in touching the lives in the first 1,000 days. And so we're going to move to some table conversations. Our panelists, some of them may be joining some tables, some may not, but know that we have a lot of deep wisdom right here in this room, and we'd like to tap it. For our large number of participants online, just to know they're not going to be left out of this. For those who are online, one of our colleagues, Maren Henderson, from the HealthPartners Institute, will be moderating a conversation in a special way we do online. So that will be happening too. But here's what's really important about this. We have the opportunity to collect together on behalf of all of us here and the kids in the St. Croix Valley. We have the opportunity to collect ideas and questions and opportunities from each of the tables gathered here and those online. What great momentum we can build. So a couple things. Each table does have both a note taker and someone to walk you through the questions. There are some forms or somewhere to record these answers, but we hope that you will have some really deep conversation about the questions that are up on the screen. One of them is about the gaps and opportunities and how we add momentum really to the work here in the Valley. We'll do some closing and I'll come back, and we'd love to hear from some of the tables. So if you have someone who wants to share out what your tables have come up with as some of the priorities, there will be time where we'll just quickly go through and hear what we hear. But thank you for this. This is a great opportunity to start our momentum, to start the engines on this work here in the Valley. At 9:30, we will close the table conversations and come back. Any other instructions from the team on that? Okay. If you are at a tiny table full of not as many people, feel free to move around if you need to. Thanks so much.
Good morning, online participants. We're gonna just take 1 minute, and our colleague Katie will be sharing a screen for a website called Mentimeter, and that is how we're gonna gather your feedback from this portion of the day. So there you can see, we invite each of you to go to menti.com. You can also, if you're on a phone, or if you prefer to participate via your phone, you can use that QR code and scan to get to menti.com. And then when you get to the website, you're going to be prompted to enter in a code to get to our specific questions. And the code is there on the screen. I need you to type in 8745-6164. And we'll wait just a few minutes as folks are gathering there. So as Marna said, my name is Maren Henderson. I work in the HealthPartners Institute, and I just want to reiterate what was said earlier, that this portion of the meeting is really important. So I hope you can stick around and lend your voice to some of the key questions that the Little Moments Count team has developed in partnership with the Valley Partners. Really trying to understand who you are, as well as gather your reactions to the panel and expertise and guidance on what could happen next. All right. So I'm hoping that was enough time for you to join us on menti.com. And Katie, I think we can go to the first question. All right, so for folks online, you should see an opportunity to click on what state you are joining us from today. There are 2 options on the right side to click if you are coming from Minnesota, if you're coming from Wisconsin, and would love to know if there are folks from other states joining us as well. So you could click other. And then we can all see the responses coming in. So we have a pretty even mix right now. It looks like about 60 folks are still online, so we'll wait a little bit longer. But we're seeing about 30 responses, and we'll give this just a bit more time. I also hope it's a way for you to start to get familiar with Menti if it's new to you. Okay, so more Minnesota partners, looking at 21 of us from Minnesota with 15 from Wisconsin, and no one is coming from another state. All right. Just want to make sure that everyone has a chance to get to Menti before we move on. All right, Katie, I'm seeing the results slow down. So I think we're ready to go to the next slide. Thank you for answering that one. So another multiple choice question. We would love to know which best describes your organization's sector, or if you are here as an individual, sort of in which sector would you say best describes where you work? Acknowledging there might be more than one that feels like it fits, but sort of your best fit. I do want to clarify, when we say education, we are including early childhood. So if you are coming from a daycare or any sort of family friend or neighbor care, anyone who's working with young children and their education, you could click that bubble. So we're seeing the most frequent so far is government, followed by education and nonprofit. Nonprofit just pulled ahead. We're seeing 4 folks from healthcare, 1 from business, and 1 person indicated other. But we still have only about half of the respondents online. So does anyone else want to weigh in before we go to the next question? Getting a few more. All right. Well, I think we can move on. Thank you all for answering that question. So now we're going to kind of open it up to more open-ended or narrative responses. So you'll see on Menti, there's a box where you can respond with up to 200 characters. And our question for you is, first, what's your immediate reaction to the panel discussion, and or what stood out most to you? So if you could start to write your responses, and then we'll see what's popping up on the screen. And if there's many things you want to say, we welcome that. So just know you can submit multiple responses, but we would love to start to see your initial thoughts come up on screen. So the first one I see is the quote, "When parents are well, children do better." That stood out to me as well. Inspiring. Passion. The amount of barriers for families in our communities. Comments about children's mental health. So you can see they're going to start to pop up more and more, and we love gathering all of your ideas. I encourage you, if you see a response that brings something up for you, feel free to add to that comment or continue to submit more ideas about your reactions and what stood out to you. Some people looking at the policy and investments. People are thinking about parents and caregivers directly. It sounds like people were just really had a positive reaction to the panelists themselves. Lots around self-regulation, social emotional health and well-being. Research is coming up. And you do have the ability, if you hover on the screen, to move up. So I know we're getting a lot of answers and they're moving on the screen, which is exciting. But if you want to take a look at on your own and see other comments that have been submitted, I encourage you to do that. Yeah, timely conversation. I'm listening to a podcast on a movement to reclaim childhood and reconnect families through more outdoor time. It's called 1000 Hours by, is it Ginny Urich? Yeah, I've seen, you can like track, you track how much time you're spending outside throughout the year. And the goal is 1000 hours. 1000 hours, and the other people are noting the 1000 first days. So that was the theme of our event today, kind of the key number. All right, we'll stay here for one more minute and then we'll move on to our next question. Really appreciate the thoughtful responses here. All right. Well, thank you again. I'm going to move us on, Katie, so if you could click to the next question. All right. So now we'd like to know, as a leader in the community, what do you perceive are the top 3 priorities related to early brain development and supporting families? And you'll see in this Menti, you have 3 separate boxes where you can write your response. So we would encourage you to write 3 different words or concepts. You could write a short phrase and then click submit, and we'll see them start to generate a word cloud as people add their words. There you go. So the first 3: support, education, and advocacy. Parental engagement. I think it's fun to watch this go over time. Just give it a few minutes to watch your ideas come together, and then we'll look as a group at what we're seeing. So I'm seeing parents come up a lot, parent education. They're moving so fast, but I know I've seen the word parent many times, parental engagement. And then at the core, what we're seeing is that word support just isn't moving, which means that there's a lot of similar words getting put in the word cloud that other people are finding that to be really important. And then we see education and parent education are both staying towards the middle. And then some of our sort of policy, advocacy, funding, investment, I would say are kind of similar words that are staying near the center as well. We're seeing some of the other themes that we noted on the last slide as well: co-regulation, mental health. Then I'm noting some comments too about sort of our support system, thinking about quality care, thinking about more support for the early childhood profession. Anything else? Any other words that people want to put forward as a top priority related to early brain development and supporting families? All right, I think we can move on. So thank you for your responses to that question. The next question, I believe, is another write-in. So please take your time. But would love to sort of center yourself in this big discussion. We know that it's complex, it's systemic, and it's really important. So today we'd encourage you to think about, what do you see as your role in supporting the first 1,000 days of a child's life? And it could be that you reflect on what you're currently doing. But maybe today's panel opened up for you a new way of thinking about your role in this space. And we'd encourage you to instead reflect on what you think your role could or should be in the future. So the first answer that came in: educating families about what easy things they can do to support child development. Talking, singing, reading, engaging, it all matters. So seeing parent education come through for a lot of you. Also seeing people name policy, advocacy, working at more of the organizational and partnership level. And then also people, there's a comment at the bottom right now about sort of their personal role, being more present in the lives of my young parent friends. At the most individual level, being the best parent that I can be. What else? And would especially encourage, if you answered the question about currently, dream big. What could your role be in the future? What new ideas are coming up for you today? Advocacy, connecting with legislators. Seen an equity theme come through, more outreach to underserved communities, making sure that there's inclusivity for communities of color. And a lot of parent education throughout, both about education for parents in terms of what those sort of early enriching experiences might be, but also the importance of sort of postpartum care and parental mental health. I'm seeing in a few comments. All right. Great ideas. And then I believe we have just one more question for all of you. So then what do we need? What do you need in order to effectively play that role that you want to have? So you might be thinking about things that are currently getting in the way. You might be thinking about things that are helping, that you want to continue to grow or expand. Time and money always come through. So yes, name them, name those barriers that we always know, and then encourage other ideas that come forward too. What other barriers might be getting in the way, or what other support could really help you do this work the way that you want to do it. Curious about fidelity to program implementation as an evaluator. You're speaking my language here. Yeah, I would also encourage, if there's more specificity, if you've added an idea and you want to explain more, this is really a time, I know that with the Zoom platform, there's some limiting ability to hear from each of you, and there's so many of you, but any specificity or detail that you feel comfortable adding on this platform, we encourage that as well. So seeing a lot of beyond funding and time, hearing that clearly, thank you for naming that. Also seeing the sort of policy and advocacy and law needs. Seeing relationship with parents and guardians, sort of themes around trust and communication, outreach with parents and families, guardians. This one is interesting, sort of a better understanding of what preschool and early childhood is, more support from the K-12 level about the importance of this work. And then similarly, more support from district administration, both financial and professionally. Seeing some comments about access to resources and materials, and if anyone wants to add more description of what sorts of resources or materials might be helpful, that would be good to know. Then yeah, just community understanding, more recognition in the field broadly. There's a comment, there's a serious lack of the understanding of the impact of early childhood experiences. Someone else wrote, start early in childhood development. Too many kids trying to get help too late in life where there could have been significant intervention early on. Someone specifically named trauma-informed practices, education, and support. Yes, I'm seeing people provide more detail about types of resources. So someone wrote data sheets that provide information from various aspects, viewpoints, and expertise, just as the panel provided for us. And then similarly, meaningful facts and stories to easily share across the community. The why, so that it drives the how and the what. Need a compelling why to inspire and drive sustainable support over time. These are beautiful responses. I'm impressed. This was an early meeting and I still need more caffeine. So thank you all for your thoughtful responses. Anything else that folks want to name? Thank you. Thank you for validating my needs this morning. All right. Well, I believe that was the last question we have, and we're going to transition back to the close of the large group. We're going to hear more about other tables discussion. So if you need a quick stretch break or bio break, feel free to do that, and we will be reconvening at 9:30. Thank you so much for participating and for joining today. I know the online experience is different than being in person, but I'm really glad that you took the time to join us today. And I hope it's been a meaningful experience for you as it has been for me.
3 times if you hear me. Okay, give ourselves a hand. Yay. And we're back. And we're back.
I couldn't not utilize the talent in the room on this one, right? So it would have been much less fun if I tried that. So I could hear the great conversations going on at tables. Wow. I know we had to close them, and what a great opportunity for us to hear from tables. I hope you picked someone or are going to volunteer someone right now to maybe report some of the conversation that you have. As we get started, I have a few notes from the conversation going on online, and we'll start with them, right? Because we haven't had a chance to hear their voices quite as much. I had a chance to look over the shoulder, and there's a very robust conversation going on. A few highlights that stood out to Katie and me. A couple of the challenges, opportunities here is changing the perceptions of what early childhood and preschool does. And the quote was, we're not just playing or babysitting, we're building brains.
Yeah.
So changing that. Just a lack of understanding of the impact of the first 1,000 days from a parent voice, thinking, well, when they get in school, this will happen. Just this idea of more education. And then another big theme was, we can work together. What can we do in the Valley? We can work together. We can do this. We're the Valley. We've done other things together before. Kind of a let's do it little cheer from online. So thank you, online folks, for all your great feedback. So from the tables in the room, we'd love to hear a summary of your conversations, some of the high points. I can call on you, or you can volunteer. Aha, Tom. How did?
So our conversation started off with the discussion around technology and the impact of technology. I'm assuming some of the other tables had the same conversation. And, you know, it's interesting, just different perspectives, but it kind of comes down to moderation, I think, in terms of how you apply the technology. Oftentimes it can be used as a supplement, and this is really important. And one of our members of our table said, you know, when you get a kid coming into preschool, they're expected to know how to use this technology. So it's important in that aspect. But at the same time, you don't want it to be a substitute for the human interaction and the things that really matter in terms of building, you know, that early development. So really nothing profound there, other than we had that conversation about the use of technology, making sure you're using it wisely and not just using it to pacify the children. I use the example of my nieces and nephews who have kids, and I couldn't help but to observe, these are little kids. Put them in the car seat, give them a little tablet or something like that. Instead of playing with them or out in the sandbox or whatever you do with little kids, you know, they would just hand them something, some kind of technology. TV used to be the substitute when I was a parent for my little kids, put them in front of Sesame Street, that kind of thing. But it's just interesting how society has kind of changed. It's now where those devices and everything become the norm. And another example was used at a restaurant to pacify the kids. You know, you look around and you look at restaurants and families, and everybody's on their devices and nobody's talking. So I guess just to be aware of that. And again, nothing profound other than just some good discussion.
Good morning. Table 10 here. And so our conversation was around a lot of support from a policy level, and that we need to really make sure that our policies are supporting the words and the thoughts that we have involved. And we talked a lot about the fact that Wisconsin used to come, when you had a child, they would come and visit you from the county. And it was really around, how can we support you? Do you know that there's resources available? And everybody got that. So it wasn't a singling certain people out or anything like that, because some of us talked about the fact that the people that need the support and the help are not the ones that usually show up for different programs and things like that. So this was a way to try to, you know, have a swath over everybody, but it comes from policy and funding. So what else would you add? Anything?
I think, yeah, meeting the basic needs.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sue, thank you. That was great. We just kind of talked about my notes here. Basic needs then allow the space in the room to be able to support your children to have time to play, talk, sing, read together. And Allison, I think you put it perfectly. It became a family, supporting families and parents and children became a charitable endeavor versus government, like action to help families. And that's how you bring it more equitably to everybody rather than just a certain few that can access resources.
Who's next? Kristen's got a mic up in the front. Thanks.
So building on the policy side of it, we talked a lot about partnerships. And it's public and private partnerships coming together to leverage their power and their funding to translate these conversations into action. Particularly on the Wisconsin side, where I feel like there's a lot, there's just more holes in the net that need to be kind of shored up. We have business partners and coalitions, both in the room, online, and in our community, who can use their collective voice to advocate for very specific policies. We have funders in the room that can do the same. And it's uniting around taking conversations like today and saying, what are our specific policy actions we want to see happen? And how do we, public and private partnerships, come together to put those into play? And without that, it's gonna be a continued uphill climb.
One of the things we talked about is how communities can invest in gathering places. For many decades, the church was the gathering place, and we know there's a large part of our community that don't go to church, and where do they gather? And so that's where we have a growing movement toward family-friendly workplaces right now, where employers are putting out there that our policies, our human resources decisions make it easier for families and employees with kids. Now we need a program that's called family-friendly communities. And so we need places to hang out. We're here with the Somerset community here, and Daniel's from the local Somerset library. And they have a baby book day where young parents and babies come together, and the kids get the opportunity to see parents modeling the behavior of talking to each other and to read. And I think we need more splash pads. We're the little ones, they're not learning how to swim, but they're learning how to have fun in water. And it gives the parent a little bit of a break so they can talk to another parent. We have a number of examples in communities where it was a community-built playground. And so now we have safe spaces for kids of all abilities to come together, and where the parents can kind of sit on the benches around the playground and interact with each other as well and support each other. It's almost like a playtime for mom and dad too, not just for the kid. But we as community members can take the initiative to create these gathering places. And I think that's really important. Anything else?
That's great.
We get a couple more. I guess I can piggyback off that a little bit more too. Thea brought a good discussion to the table about barriers. What are the barriers in our community? Rural health, that's, kind of where do we meet together and kind of find these barriers or kind of offer our support. We talked about mental health, maybe cultural. I do work with Spanish communities and Amish communities, actually. So just like I said, piggybacking off of, meeting places, we talked about some other barriers that we have.
Farm Health Day.
Yeah.
I love this.
I'll just introduce myself. My name is Cora Meyer. I am the pediatric care coordinator at Western Wisconsin Health, which is in Baldwin. So like I mentioned, we actually have a large population of Amish and Spanish communities, which, you know, maybe don't often come into the clinic for very often. So something we've kind of developed is meet them where they're at. So just next week, I'm going, me and my crew at the clinic, we're going to one of the farms. So one of the dairy farms where they typically work and or we kind of are branching out into that community, kind of increasing trust in healthcare again. So we're meeting them where they're at and just offering education, support, just all of the great things that to fill in that barrier.
One more.
Hi, everyone. Angie Pilgrim with the St. Croix Valley Foundation. So Brad at our table said, we have the research. We know what we need to do, yet we're not funding the programming appropriately. And he referenced the Head Start in Stillwater that is currently closed because they're not paying the employees enough. And so the people that need the programming and services more and most are not able to access it because of low wages. We're not paying people enough. And that includes childcare centers as well. So advocacy, how can we all become advocates and make sure, and referencing the wonderful research we have to encourage our government and elected officials to fund the programming more appropriately.
Very quickly, one more. By the way, my Rotary Club meets in this room every single Wednesday, and we're always told, don't talk over the microphone, talk into the microphone. You don't know how many times I wanted to say this. I'm just going to leave you with kind of a question that we asked at our table. Number of the panelists referred to the fact that we declare families and children to be our most important resources. Imagine, what would St. Croix County, what would Washington County, what would Pierce County look like if in fact all the policies supported that? Imagine what that might look like.
What a great vision. Thank you for that, for us to end with. Please know that all the comments and those of you participating online will be compiled and we will share back with all of you what we heard as we continue to build this movement. Thank you so much to our panelists and to all of you for sharing your wisdom. And you could just feel the energy, couldn't you? Growing in the room as we go. As we wrap up, I know that energy will continue as Heather Loughlin, President and CEO of the St. Croix Valley Foundation, comes up to close us out. Just another great heartfelt thanks to the foundation for their funding to partner with Little Moments Count and the First 1,000 Days Fund to bring this momentum right here in the Valley. Where most of us live or work or play or all of the above. So thanks, and thank you, Heather.
Thanks so much. So I'm Heather Loughlin, President and CEO of the St. Croix Valley Foundation. While we are delighted to be behind the scenes for this event, I wouldn't be doing my job, and my board chair, my boss, is in the room, if I didn't take advantage of the opportunity to just say a few words about what we do. So we are the community foundation for the St. Croix Valley. We serve 6 counties, Washington and Chisago on the Minnesota side of the river, and then Burnett, Polk, St. Croix, and Pierce counties here on the Wisconsin side of the river. During COVID, I heard and have embraced this statement that as community foundations, we have the privilege of operating at the apex of generosity and need. So as a community foundation, we have the privilege both of working to lift up philanthropy, supporting generous donors throughout this region who want to make a difference, who want to make a gift now or through their estate plan to really leave a legacy for the Valley. And we also have the privilege of getting to know all of our community partners, all of our nonprofit partners throughout the 6-county region. And so our opportunity, our challenge is to do well in that space. And this event is such a good example. And I have to stop because I have to give credit where it's due. Angie Pilgrim, my colleague at the table, who really stepped in after Bill and Rita Lawson, sitting in the middle of the room, came to me surprised me in my office one day about 2 years ago and pulled out their checkbook and said, we actually want to do this now instead of waiting till we're gone. And we're generous of heart and said, we know we care about early childhood, but we're not the experts. You guys figure it out. And Angie and I said, we're not the experts. And Angie ran with it. I think one of the panelists talked about letting, I think it was you, Thia, letting community lead. Thank you, some of you. And we pulled together the experts, you folks in the room, and said, we have this opportunity to make a difference. What should we do? And I think Bill and Rita, who would have thought a year and a half ago that this is where this would have gone? You talk about ripple effect. So thank you to you. Thank you to all of you for helping make this happen. So quick thanks. Yes, thank you to all of you for being here. About 70 in the room, about 140, it sounds like virtually. Thank you to the nonprofit partners. We sometimes call them grantees, but really they deserve a bigger word because you are the ones doing the work. So thank you for all the work that you're doing here in this region. Thanks to our moderator. Thank you to our panelists, the volunteers. Thank you to HealthPartners. We really plugged into this thing that was already a train rolling down the tracks, and timing was just, it was serendipitous. So thank you for your leadership on this important subject and for helping bring this work to the Valley. A special thanks to Kristen Mullen and Jade Hip, who I think are here today. Yes, no, yes, yes, thank you. Thank you to our event sponsors, First State Bank and Trust. And so what, again, to back up, what's the point of being here today? Why did we bring you all together? We want to, yes, raise awareness. Someone talked about political will. Until we raise enough awareness that we create the political will to make change, we are not going to address some of those systemic barriers that came up at all of our tables. How quickly we moved from early childhood to transportation, to substance abuse. This is a web. And until we raise the political will, so this is about awareness and sparking connections. So I love the fact that I look around the room and I see familiar faces, and I met a lot of new people today. I hope that experience was true for many of you and that you leverage those connections to make things happen moving forward. So 3 asks of those of you who are with us today, whether in person or online. 1, please join us for additional learning on Tuesday, June 18th via Zoom. There's a QR code at your table. You can register right now if you haven't. We're going to hear from some of the experts right here in our region. We're going to hear from Stillwater ECFE. We're going to hear from the Family Resource Centers of Burnett counties and St. Croix counties about what's new, what's different in the parenting landscape, in the baby and brain landscape, and how nonprofits in our region are responding to support parents, babies, and families. So please join us for that event on Tuesday, June 18th. That's 1. 2, I don't know if it was Marna or Papu talked about the circles of influence. Share what you've learned today with the folks you see every day, every week. Talk to your friends, family members, neighbors. Get them excited about this work that we're trying to drive around early childhood education, and get them thinking about the role they have to play, because we all have a role to play. I think about this kind of related to the environment. You can't do it all, but you've got to do something. So figure out, help your networks figure out what they can do, what role they can play. The actions may seem simple and the impact could be profound. So that's 2. And then 3, again, as Pablo mentioned, we invite you and your organization, your business, to join the Little Movements Count movement, the Little Movements Count Valley Council right here in eastern Minnesota and western Wisconsin, to collectively address these challenges and opportunities. The council's first meeting will be held virtually on June 5th from 1 to 2:30 p.m. So you can, if you're here today, you can sign up at the Little Moments Count booth, or we'll include information in the recap email that we send out to all of you who registered, whether in person or virtually. So finally, I will echo Pakua's request. Please complete the survey. Please take a few moments to complete the survey. Really, it is your feedback that helps all of us who pull together events like this, make these events better. So thank you. And finally, going back to that reference to the networks, the circles, I was privileged to be in Bill and Rita's circle, and that's how the gift that sparked all of this came about. I would love an opportunity to be in your circle. So if you're thinking about how you might make a difference, that's why we're here. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for being here and for being part of this important conversation. Have a great day.